Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 6/21/2022, and today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 123. And so here I am at the project. This is not an official Odin project like we're used to seeing, where it's labeled as a project. You're doing a bunch of things. Um, we are doing things here, but it's not. It doesn't give me that vibe that it's an actual project. So I'm gonna take it. It's gonna sound confusing, probably, but trying to talk this out. But I'm gonna approach it like a real project, but I'm not going to put it in its own library like I have with my other projects on this channel, since it's not an official project. But the reason why I'm kind of gonna take it in steps like a project is because I have decided. I wrote my pseudocode out a little bit, and I drew on my paper what I want it to look like, and then I thought, well, this would be a good candidate for an npm build. So I am going to make a package out of this. So it has it. So it needed a GitHub repo for that too. And so I did all that, and I just decided it was worth it to make a little video series out of it. Like I said, I'm not going to make it a full-fledged project. I'm not going to do. I don't think I'm gonna do anyway. The the parts and all that, different breakouts, but we'll see. But anyway, without further ado, we'll go ahead and talk through this. So basically, it says build a browser form which collects email, country, zip code, password, password confirmation fields. It should use live inline validation to inform the user whether the field's properly filled out or not. That means highlighting a field in red and providing a helpful error message until it's been filled out properly. The form doesn't actually need to submit, but you should give an error message if the button is pushed with any active errors or unfilled required fields. For the sake of this lesson, make sure all the validation occurs in the JavaScript file. If all is well and the form is submitted, quote unquote, give the user a high five. Step 1, set up the HTML. Step 2, think about how you would set this up and the accompanying validators and elements. What objects and functions will you need? A few minutes of thought can save you wasting hours of code. The best thing you can do is whiteboard the entire solution before even touching the computer. Write the elements, add the JavaScript code that checks the validation as the user progresses through the form. When a user leaves a form field, it should automatically validate it. Test all possible cases, and don't forget to style validations with CSS. So I kind of wrote it down like the highlights of what I just read on my pseudocode. And what I decided to do for step 1 is I did start the blank project. So I went through the whole creating the GitHub repo. Nothing new to this channel at all. I've done that a million times, so I won't show you that on screen. So I created the repo, cloned it down, and what I decided to do for this video is I wanted to tackle a modal. So I made a modal. We haven't done that in quite a long time. In fact, I think it was one of the first projects I ever worked on. So I created first before I did the modal, I created the npm package using this document here. This is nothing new. This was scoped out and talked about in our previous exercise. Not the previous exercise. A couple projects ago, when we were going over npm packages. So basically, going over it again real quick. After you create your repo, you can do git remote add origin git, and then instead of having git in here, you're going to put in your HTTPS of your location of your code. So basically, you copy this location, this HTTPS, and you would put that. You would. Wow, I'm all over the place here. You put that here, and then run that command, and then you run npm init, and I'll show you my terminal. So this is basically what you're doing. So here's me running the git remote add origin, and there's my GitHub, and it's saying it's already exists because I had already created the GitHub clone. So then I ran npm init, and then you run through it gives you the warning here that we're going to run through the questions. And so you run through the questions, your package name, your version, your description, and I just copied over my README file, a simple form module created utilizing the constraints and validation API in JavaScript. This has been packaged and deployed to npm as well publicly. Obviously, I'm writing future tense. I haven't done that yet because we got to build it first, but when we're done, we're going to deploy it to the public registry. Entry point is form-validation.js, which is the default. Test command empty. Git repository that filled in automatically because it was already connected to my GitHub when I cloned it down. Conversely, if you don't do that first, you will have to run these two git init and this git remote in order to connect that the package JSON to your GitHub. And then author, I just put my handle in there, MIT license, and then there it creates it. And so it creates that, verboses it out, asks if it's okay, hit enter for yes, and then you end up with this package JSON file right here. And then that's it. After that, you're as far as the document goes, you are down to here, number 7. Start your text editor and write your package. So that's that in a nutshell. If I remember, I will include a link to this in the video description notes. So moving right along here, that creates that. Go ahead and get rid of that. So hitting the code here. So I created the modal for this video, and so if you don't remember that, I had to look it up a little bit, and then I got some things off Google and then refactored it to my liking. So here we'll go through that. So here's the boilerplate file, JS constraint validation form. My title is just usually what my project's title is. I got a button ID inside the body here. Got my, actually I should go up here. Excuse me. Tourette's is active here. I have a relative style sheet for style sheets there, the link. And then coming down here, I got my button ID. My modal button it's called Open the Form. Sits parked right on the front page there. Right now it's not styled; it's just in the top left-hand corner. And then I have another div called My Modal ID with the class of modal, and inside that div is the class modal content. So this is what's going to be inside of it. And then I've got a span of class close, which is a little, if you remember, we've covered this in previous video. This is Unicode at times colon or semicolon is the Unicode for X, for Xing out of stuff or closing out. And then I got a P tag for some text in the modal just to see it on the screen. And then my closing div tags here. And then at the bottom here, I have a script tag for my JavaScript, which is conveniently called form-validation, because when I made it originally, I wasn't thinking about modal, and I was only thinking about form validation, the API we've been using. So I just called it that, which it's okay, because if you skip over here to my form validation, I went ahead and created a DOM from a modal module. So that's it's a constant variable called DOM modal events, and this is self-invoking, just like we talked about in the previous video on the adding the feature addition to the library app. So here we have 3 variables, modal, button, and span, that are getting pulling their IDs from my modal button, and class query selector close from the HTML. And then we're going to add event listeners to each one. So BTN gets an event listener to click and run modal.display. Modal.style.display is blocked. So basically, when we're going to click the button, we're going to display, change the display to block so that basically it appears, and I'll show you the CSS here in a moment. It starts out as display none. Span, add event listener click, so this is the X we just talked about. So if they click the X inside the modal, the display will go to none on the modal, which will basically hide it. Gives the user the effect that it's left, but it just goes into hiding. And then we have window.add event listener. We've been over this in a couple videos ago. This is a targeted attribute or variable for the entire viewport. So if anywhere in the viewport's clicked outside of the modal, we're going to run an event click, and then through an if, we're going to do event.target. If it equals the modal, we're going to change the display to none. And all that does is just, like I said, if they click outside, if the user clicks outside of the modal, we're going to change the display to none. So it appears that the modal went bye-bye, but it's just gone into hiding. That's that. That's all I've added for that. For style sheet, I did this just for aesthetics so that I could easily see and remember what I've got, because we'll be adding more CSS later down the road for our form validation. So we have modal CSS start and modal CSS end. And in between here, we have all the modal stuff that we need. For CSS, we have display none. Like I said, we're going to start off with display none there. And we're going to do position fixed, so it stays in place. Z index of 1, so it sits on top. Excuse me. We have a left and top of zeros. Zero out those positions. Width and height of 100%. We want full width and full height for our modal itself. Overflow is auto. This enables scrolling if needed. So we'll need that'll come into play. Will be important to us to be able to scroll, especially my idea. I haven't fleshed it out, but the idea is I'm going to put the form inside of the modal. So hopefully that'll work. I haven't got to that part yet. That'll be for the next video. But background color is black, and we have another background color defined as black with opacity of 0.4. And all that's doing is, so the first one is a fallback color. And then if our browser, which all modern browsers render it, the opacity, we're going to use this one as our primary. But if it doesn't take the opacity, this will be the fallback. That's why it's in there twice. Again, with modern, we're just making this backward compatible with older browsers. We probably really at this point don't need this one, but I'm just going to leave it in there. And then we have modal content box. Background color is an off-white. Margins 20% in auto. This represents the margin from the top and also centers it from the top of the viewport. Padding's 20 pixels, self-explanatory. Border 1 pixel solid, and it's a gray, like a grayish shade, pound 888. Self-explanatory, and this is for the content of the modal box, and the width is 80%. That could be less or more depending on your screen size. I just put it 80%. Looked good to me. Close. This is the X inside the modal. We're going to give it that off color gray of pound AAA. We're going to float it to the right. So it's going to be at the top right hand corner of the modal. And font size 20 pixels, and weight is bold. And we have an action here for close. So just going over what we just mentioned, the close X, if you hover and a focus. So if you hover over it with the mouse, and if you click as the focus, it will change to black, and the text decoration is none. So basically that removes any decorations like underlining or anything like that may have been inside of it. And we're going to change the cursor to a pointer to indicate to the user that they can click that. And that's the end of the CSS. So showing this in action. Just pretty simple here this time. Took me a little bit to get this fired up and operational. Like I say, I had to go Google it because I couldn't remember how to do modal, but I feel like this would be pretty cool to integrate this with the form. So I'm hoping that all this wasn't for null and that I can actually figure out how to put a form inside of a modal, because I didn't see a lot of examples of that on my Google searches. So we'll see. So you hit the button here, and then it pops up in the middle here. There's our shaded gray, our white off-right background, some text in the modal, and here's that firing of that hover pseudo CSS. Click it, and there it goes. Bye bye. Click it again, and if I click outside of the modal, this will fire off that JavaScript to hide the display. So there is that. If you see it in the HTML, there's display block comes up. So we're showing the modal, and we're going back to display none when we click out, and also when we click X. And if you see here, we have scroll enabled, so it's scrollable flow. That's important in case because this thing will grow in width, or not width, height, excuse me, as I add in my elements. And that is it. So keep this one a decent time. So don't forget to push all your changes to GitHub. I've been working on that here. So I went ahead and pushed all the latest changes for the modal. And in the next video, I will work on starting to build out the HTML framework for the elements, and hopefully they behave and look nice inside the modal. That will be yet to be seen. But anyway, please like, share, and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments section how you guys are coming along with this. And again, I'm probably going to this is going to feel like a project because I'm going to step you through this with the videos as usual, but I don't think I'm going to nomenclature it as an actual project, since it's not an actual project as we're used to seeing in the Odin Project. So I may change my mind on that, but just talking out loud. So with all that said, until next time, see ya.